Hey everybody, this is Cara Johnstad, singer-songwriter and founder of Voice Your Essence, and it's good to be back. And I'm going to share with you today the newest Voice Your Essence article, and it's called Being an Artist Takes Courage, Living Beyond Reason. Yeah. So I was at a very small dinner party last week, a beautiful evening, and I was totally reminded of how much I love living in Europe. The quiet, romantic courtyards, the huge old windows, the gas lamps, and the slowed down lifestyle. And the evening was simply perfect, wonderful food and high spirits, and yet I was reminded constantly, I kept on drifting in and out, of a quote from Susanne Sontag, and she said, "Interpretation is the revenge of the intellectual upon art." There is an art of analyzing art, and yet there is a beauty of simply absorbing and letting it touch you. There is a beauty as an artist of not having to explain why we are singing, and the joy of singing, just simply doing it, not having to know why we are loving. We love. I have a dear friend, and he walks into museums with me and says, "Let's just go in and see what pulls us." There's no buying the books beforehand or analyzing the catalogs, nor is there reading the descriptions on the side of the paintings. We walk around until something touches us, until we are moved, and only then do we begin the journey. And I did this with an exhibition by Annie Leibovitz. It was in Berlin at the old post office building. There were huge rooms, and the line to get into this exhibition was very, very long. And it was my only free day, and I stood in the rain, happy to be on an artist date with myself. And I walked through the rooms with no history of her work and no stories to take with me. I let her various stages work in me. And I saw pictures of rock stars and pictures of deathbeds. I saw pictures of a lady on a beach with a little kid holding hands and daring the waves to hit their ankles. And I simply wandered and sensed. And at the end of the 2 hours, I came upon a room with a video playing, a documentary on her life. And I went into the dark room and stepped into the middle of the film. She was in the final days with her partner, Susan Sontag, and I was pulled. I was deeply pulled. And then I watched her take photos of her dying father. And then as everyone left the theater, I stayed and watched the beginning of her early career, the drugs, the rock stars, the long highways, the high-end star photo shoots, and then the hard contrast of going from Fifth Avenue, bling bling, to being in Herzegovina during the war times and watching bombs fall. Her work hit me and touched me. And yet, even though I saw all these parts, the beauty was I was only left with the whole, the colors, the shades, and I could not dissect. This is what fascinated me about the dinner conversation on the evening in Berlin, the need to dissect and analyze art. And yet, I, as an artist, could not dissect my own songs. There is no logic when I write. Cezanne said, "The artist must scorn all judgment that is not based on an intelligent observation of character. He must beware of the literary spirit which so often causes a painting to deviate from its true path, the concrete study of nature to lose itself all too long in intangible speculations. There is a mood, there are triggers from within or without. There is a feeling that happens as I deep dive, and sometimes memories or colors are added, and yet it is always fascinating to watch non-artists tell artists what art really is and what is really valuable in a piece or not. I left the evening happy that I had never, ever been able to dissect a frog. For I knew that the frog was only a beautiful whole and alive, and the beauty was not to disturb this complex universe. The same is with cars or bikes. I never wanted to take things apart and dissect it and put it back together. I simply loved riding, wind blowing against my face, fascinated that all the parts were working. And if they were not working, I simply walked and brought it to the shop. Yes, the joy of being an artiste. Creativity takes courage. Henry Matisse. And I do not think that reason can lead us to truth. A famous Tibetan monk, Marpa, is reported to have said after someone asked him, "Can't scriptures help?" He said, "They can help you to move beyond scriptures. Read them, learn them, understand them enough to know that truth is not written in stone. Truth is in the wind. It's hard to catch." Reason can analyze, but it cannot synthesize. It cannot integrate. Like scissors, it can cut and divide, but it cannot melt. It cannot create harmony. There's a beautiful story about an ancient Sufi saint named Bayazid. And one day, many, many years ago, somebody wanted to make him a gift and presented him with a pair of golden scissors. These scissors were very precious and had diamonds on them and were very, very rare. And Bayazid did not accept the gift. He said, "Take them back." "Why?" the man questioned, for he had thought that he was giving something so important. And Bayazid answered, "Because my essence is not to cut and divide and to analyze and to tear apart. Bring me a needle, golden or not golden, any kind of needle will do. My whole being wishes for synthesis. Synthesis is my goal, to join things together, not apart. A scissors is not for me." Beautiful Sufi story. And when sitting at this very beautiful dinner party, I had to think of this story. How there are the artists and then the world that revolves around the artists. The world of buying and selling and creating comparisons and dissecting. Yet the world around the artists and the world of the artists are at times moving from different places. Technique is really personality, said Oscar Wilde. That is the reason why the artist cannot teach it, why the pupil cannot learn it, and while the aesthetic critic can understand it. To the great poet, there is only one method of music, his own. To the great painter, there is only one manner of painting, that which he himself employs. The aesthetic critic alone, can appreciate all forms and all modes. It is to him that art makes her appeal. The one world is to integrate and works inwards and later gives birth outwards. The other one gives reasons and dissects, and I'm not really sure if after you have dissected a song or a painting, if you will ever feel the same joy. I myself know that as a songwriter and coach, I lead people to places of creation and try to have them get in touch with different layers that are beyond reasoning, and yet this is why I do not teach songwriting. Because for me, there is no right or wrong in art or in singing or in painting. The techniques are like the scriptures. They are there to study and help us develop a certain discipline. They are there as bridges to help us move forward when we might get a bit stuck. But in the end, they are tools, and what you need is a needle. A needle to sew all the memories and fantasies and soundscapes and techniques together into your own unique offering. Do what you feel in your heart to be right, for you'll be criticized anyway. Miss Eleanor Roosevelt. When the heart starts functioning, there's no returning to reason. You use the mind as a tool, but you know that when you dissect, art disappears. Just like when you're in love. If you analyze the goods and the bads and the conversations, the body, the nose, the goods, the bads, the body, the nose, the conversations, if you start to reason, the love has already disappeared. The quickest way to destroy love is to try to explain it. It's a mystery. The attacks of which I have been the object have broken the spring of life in me. People don't realize what it feels like to be constantly insulted. Believe it or not, those were the words of Edouard Manet. Art is such a delicate harmony, a unity. It cannot be dissected, nor can it be understood. It can be experienced. Enjoy opening your beings to the art that moves in you. Enjoy opening your beings to the art that moves you. You need no other reason than that you are alive and curious. Trust in your own inner voice when listening to music or hanging up artwork that you love. You know better than any studied art critic what touches you deeply. Artists and poets are the raw nerve endings of humanity. By themselves, they can do little to save humanity. And without them, there would be very little worth saving. Artists and poets are the raw nerve endings of humanity. By themselves, they can do little to save humanity. Without them, there would be little worth saving. That's an anonymous quote, which I dearly, dearly love. It was published in the New York Times on August 17th, 1993, and was found on a headstone. It was an inscription on a headstone in Green River Cemetery, Springs, New York, where Jackson Pollock and Elaine de Kooning and many other artists are buried. So everybody, I wish you a fabulous, fabulous week where you're connected to your own deep essence and where you're just really enjoying all the beauty that's around you and that surrounds you. And I'm going to see you and connect with you very soon. Leave your comments below if you have any ideas or like what you heard. And I'll see you at Voice Your Essence, or you can add your name to the conversation just by opting in at www.karajohnstad.com. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.